He said it so casually, like he was commenting on the weather. "You were never much to begin with, Mom. Let's stop pretending otherwise." And then he went back to sipping his espresso, eyes fixed on his phone like I wasn't even there. I sat across from him, at the same kitchen island where I used to slice apples for his lunchbox. The granite countertop was new, imported, expensive. I helped pay for it last spring when the kitchen renovation was supposed to be a surprise for his wife. His wife, who barely says hello to me now. I didn't respond. I just looked at him, my only son, and wondered when his voice had become so cold. Tom used to laugh like a boy who knew the world was on his side. But somewhere along the line, that laugh dried up, replaced by smirks and superiority. I stopped recognizing him years ago, but today was the first time I stopped recognizing myself. I drove home in silence, the kind that sits heavy in your chest. My old Honda made its usual groans, the ones Tom says I'm too stubborn to fix. He's right. I am stubborn. And maybe that's why I didn't cry, even after what he said. Not until later. The house was cold when I got in. October had arrived early in Charlotte this year, with sharp wind and brown leaves dancing like they had somewhere to be. I left my coat on and went straight to the kettle. Tea. That's how I handle things. Boil water, add leaves, pour, breathe. That's when the phone rang. It was a number I didn't recognize. Local area code. I almost let it go to voicemail. Almost. "Mrs. Hart?" The voice was polite, young. "This is Caleb Jennings from Union First Bank. I'm calling to verify some recent activity on your line of credit." I felt something cold tighten in my stomach. "I don't have a line of credit," I said. There was a pause. "Ma'am, according to our records, you've had an open credit line with us for the past 18 months. Several recent charges raised a flag on our end. We just wanted to confirm they were authorized." I sank into the kitchen chair. 18 months? "I'm sorry," I said. "You must be mistaken." He cleared his throat. "Could you confirm the last 4 digits of your Social Security number?" I did. Stupidly. Trusting the word bank still meant something solid. He continued. "Right. That matches. And just to be sure, can you confirm your current address? The one associated with the account is..." He read my address, word for word, then the charges. A high-end appliance store, a boutique furniture showroom, a digital media marketing firm in Raleigh. Thousands and thousands of dollars. "I didn't authorize any of that," I whispered. "I understand, ma'am. Fraud happens more than we'd like to admit. I'll note that you're disputing the transactions. You should also know," he hesitated, "the total outstanding balance is $46,273.85, including interest." I gripped the edge of the table. "I didn't open that account," I said again, more forcefully now. "I don't even know where half those places are." There was silence on the line. "Mrs. Hart," Caleb said slowly, "would you be able to come in this week? We'll need to see you in person. If fraud has occurred, we'll help you begin the process of filing a report and securing your identity. Bring any documentation you have. If someone else opened this account in your name, we'll need proof." I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. After we hung up, I sat in the kitchen a long time. The kettle had whistled itself hoarse and gone quiet. I didn't even pour the tea. I walked to the filing cabinet in the spare room. The bottom drawer held everything: tax returns, car title, death certificate, pension statements, and tucked between 2 folders, a manila envelope I didn't remember filing. I opened it. Inside, photocopies of credit agreements. Union First Bank. My name, my address, my social security number, but not my handwriting, not my signature. I felt a jolt in my chest, like someone had pulled a rug from under my ribs. I flipped through the pages, 7, 8, 9 separate documents, all with my forged signature. And one more thing, a section labeled, "Introduced by..." The name printed in blue ink made my vision go dark for a second. Thomas A. Hart. I sat with the envelope in my lap like it might catch fire. It felt too warm, too heavy, like something alive. My name, forged again and again, and under each false promise. Tom's name, in cold print, as the introducer. The word sounded ridiculous now. Introducer. Like he was doing me a favor. I've always been a woman who double-checks receipts, who balances a checkbook by hand even when the app does it for you. I caught a missing 0 in my property tax once before the county clerk did. But I'd missed this. Completely. Or maybe I didn't want to look closely. Maybe a part of me knew. The chair creaked as I stood, slowly. My knees reminded me I wasn't 40 anymore. I walked back into the kitchen and put on another kettle, not out of habit this time, but because I needed something to hold, something real. The phone was still on the table, screen dark. I stared at it. I could call Tom, ask calmly, like a mother should, like I always had. "Darling, did you by chance..." "Sweetheart, could you explain this to me?" Or I could drive to his house, or I could scream. Instead, I did what I always do. I wrote a list. Pen. Paper. First item. Call Union First. Ask about fraud protocol. Second item. Pull credit reports. All 3 agencies. Third item. Check attorney contact from when Henry died. I hadn't spoken to Mr. Langford in years, but he was the only lawyer I'd ever trusted. Fourth item. Don't tell Tom yet. Not until I know more. I stared at that last one for a long time. When Henry died, I learned how to make decisions alone. When Tom dropped out of college for a year and blamed everyone but himself, I didn't scold him. I helped him find work. When his first business failed, I emptied half of my retirement to pay off the lease. "It's an investment," he said. "You're helping me build something." I thought I was building a bridge. Turns out I was building a noose. The next morning, I dressed like I used to when I worked at the print shop. Neat blouse, navy pants, soft cardigan. Something about dignity begins with how you look when you walk into a room. I printed out copies of everything. The envelope contents, my driver's license, old utility bills to prove my signature, my name, myself. Union First's downtown branch was pristine. I was met by a woman named Dana, sharply dressed, her makeup too perfect. She gave me a professional smile that softened only slightly when I introduced myself. "Of course. Mr. Jennings mentioned you might come in," she said, leading me into a glass-walled office. "I understand there's concern over an account in your name." I laid the papers on the table. "I didn't open it. I never signed these. Look at the signatures." She examined the papers, her brow tightening. She flipped through them slowly, methodically. When she got to the referral page, the one with Tom's name, she paused. "Thomas Hart," she read aloud. "He's listed as the referring party." "My son," I said quietly. "That's my son." She blinked. For a moment, her expression shifted from polite professionalism to something else. Pity? Discomfort? It passed quickly. "We'll need to escalate this," she said. "If you're certain the signatures are not yours, and you did not authorize any of these accounts, we'll begin our internal fraud investigation immediately." I want to file a police report, I said, before I could second-guess myself. Dana hesitated. Of course. But just so you're aware, in cases involving family members, it can become complicated. I looked at her, straight in the eyes. It's already complicated. I'm not here to protect anyone. I'm here to protect myself. She nodded slowly. Understood. Let's get the paperwork started. It took over an hour. I signed affidavits, flagged my identity for monitoring, and requested copies of all the applications submitted in my name. Dana was efficient, but something in her demeanor had changed by the end, almost cautious. I left the branch with a folder full of documentation and a quiet, rattling storm in my chest. The next stop was Langford and Blake LLP. The office hadn't changed in decades. Wood paneling, deep green carpet, the scent of leather and dust. Mr. Langford had aged, but his handshake was still firm. I remember you, he said kindly. You and your husband were the first clients I took on my own. How can I help you, Marilyn? I laid everything out. Every detail. I didn't cry. I didn't hedge. When I was done, he leaned back and rubbed his chin. That's felony fraud, he said flatly. Identity theft. Unauthorized use of credit. And if the bank proves intent, they will, I said. It wasn't just one account. He exhaled. You know this may result in charges against your son. I nodded. You still want to proceed? I folded my hands in my lap. They weren't shaking anymore. Yes, I said. Yes, I do. Tom called that evening. I didn't answer. The screen lit up again 2 minutes later. Then again. Then a text. Mom, you okay? Call me back. I stared at the phone until the screen dimmed. My hand hovered over it, not with hesitation, but with calculation. I wasn't ready yet. Not until I knew exactly how deep this went. I made tea, sat in my chair by the window, the same chair where I used to rock Tom when he was a baby, before he could speak, before he could lie. The quiet hum of the city was outside, but inside, only the whisper of steam curling from my cup. I spent the next morning calling the credit bureaus. TransUnion, Equifax, Experian. I requested full reports and fraud alerts. All three. The hold times were long, the voices at the other end mostly scripted, but the words they used hit like bricks. Multiple inquiries. Several new accounts within the last 18 months. Balances exceeding $80,000 across revolving lines. It didn't stop with Union First. There were 5 credit cards I'd never applied for, and a personal loan from an online lender I'd never heard of. The applications all used my name, my social security number, my address, and the same forged signature at the bottom. All of them had one thing in common. They'd been opened from an IP address traced to Tom's home. By noon, I was sitting back in Mr. Langford's office, this time with a stack of printouts and a grim, tight nod. He flipped through them carefully, lips pressed into a thin line. When he looked up, his voice had dropped. This wasn't a mistake, Marilyn. This was sustained, intentional. It's identity theft and financial fraud. Likely mail fraud, too. I nodded. Can we file? We can file today, he said. But you need to know. It will open a criminal investigation. He'll be contacted by law enforcement. They may want to speak to you again as well. Are you sure you want to do this? I folded my hands. My nails were trimmed, clean. I hadn't even realized I'd stopped biting them. Do you remember the first time I came here? I asked him. He smiled gently. To write Henry's will. And do you remember what I said? I said, my boy is everything I've got. And you told me, so let's protect him. He nodded, solemn. Well now, I said, I need you to protect me from him. He didn't flinch. All right, Mrs. Hart. The report was filed with the Charlotte Police Department by 4 that afternoon. They took my statement, logged the documents, gave me a case number. The officer who helped me, Detective Keller, was young, with eyes that studied you carefully, but not unkindly. "We see this more than you'd think," he said, as I signed the last form. "Kids using their parents' credit, sometimes just until they're on their feet, sometimes with consent. But this is different." "It is," I said. He didn't ask. He nodded, then paused. "You're aware that pressing charges means you'll be a named victim in a felony case. It may go to court, possibly trial." "I understand. It also means your name will be on the paperwork. You'll be in the records, even public ones. Some people find that difficult." "I'm not ashamed," I said, and it surprised even me how calm I sounded. "I didn't steal anything." The next day, the call finally came. Tom again. This time, I answered. "Mom," he said, breathless, like he'd run from something. "Why haven't you returned my calls? Haley said you've been acting weird. What's going on?" I didn't answer immediately. I let the silence settle between us like a fog. "I went to the bank," I said finally. The pause on his end was long. Too long. "What bank?" he said carefully. "Union First and others." "Tom, what did you do?" "I don't know what you're talking about." "The accounts in my name, the loans, the debt, over $80,000. He inhaled sharply. Look, it was supposed to be temporary, okay? I was going to consolidate and pay it back. I just needed to get through the year. Business was slow. I didn't want to bother you." "You didn't want to bother me," I repeated. "So instead, you stole my name." He started talking quickly. "It wasn't stealing, Mom. I knew you wouldn't mind. You never use your credit anyway. You're retired. It's not like—" "Not like what?" I interrupted, my voice still calm, but colder now. "Not like I have a right to what's mine?" There was another pause. Then the anger crept in. "Jesus, Mom, don't be dramatic. This is exactly why I didn't tell you. You blow everything out of proportion. Look, just tell the bank it was a misunderstanding. We'll fix it. I'll pay it down. I've already made some payments, okay?" "No, Tom." "What do you mean, no?" "I filed a report. With the police. With a lawyer. It's done." The silence this time was different. "You're kidding." "I'm not." "You called the cops on your own son?" "No," I said quietly. "I called the police on the man who stole my identity and lied to my face." There was a sound on the other end, something between a breath and a growl. And then the line went dead. I set the phone down and looked out the window. The wind was picking up. The trees swayed, uncertain of whether fall had arrived or not. I picked up my tea. It had gone cold again. The hardest part wasn't calling the police, or hearing Tom's voice twist into fury. It was sitting alone afterward, in the quiet, trying to understand how long I'd been blind. Not ignorant, no, I've never been that, but willfully blind. Like someone who keeps cleaning around a crack in the wall instead of patching it, telling herself it's nothing, just a shadow, just time playing tricks. The truth is, I'd noticed things. Years ago, when Tom borrowed my tax forms for a quick scan and took 2 days to return them. When a letter from a mortgage company arrived, addressed to me, but at his house. When I spotted his name listed as authorized user on a card I never remembered applying for. Each time, he had a reason. "It's just paperwork, Mom. You probably forgot. You signed it, remember?" I'm just trying to help. And I believed him, because that's what mothers do. The days following our call were heavy with silence. Tom didn't try again. No calls, no texts. The quiet wasn't peaceful. It was tactical, a waiting game. He was hoping I'd fold. I didn't. Instead, I called Haley. She picked up on the second ring. Grandma? Hi, sweetheart. Do you have a minute? Always. There was something in her voice that steadied me. That old warmth I remembered from when she was little, sitting on my lap, reading about fireflies and rain. I need to ask you something, I said. Something serious. Okay, she said, instantly alert. What's wrong? Has your father ever asked you to sign anything for me? Anything legal? Anything involving the bank? A pause. No, never. Why? Grandma, are you in trouble? I smiled faintly. Not anymore. I told her the truth. Not all the legal details, but enough. The debt, the fake accounts, her father's name on everything. By the end, she was quiet. He always talks about you like you're a burden, she said finally, voice tight. Like you don't understand how the world works. But you were the one who helped him get his first car. Paid for my braces. Bought that house he keeps pretending he earned. I hadn't known that she knew so much, that she'd been watching. I'm so sorry, Grandma. You have nothing to be sorry for. She hesitated. Is there anything I can do? Just don't take sides, I said. That's not your place. But I want to. I know, I whispered. And that's enough. When we hung up, I sat for a long time with my eyes closed, letting the silence be something else. Not punishment, not fear, just stillness. A pause between what was and what would come next. On Tuesday, Detective Keller called with an update. We've confirmed the IP data, he said. Your son submitted at least 3 of the applications from his home network. We're coordinating with the lenders now. Once the bank completes its internal audit, we'll move to issue formal charges. How long will that take? A week, maybe 2? He'll be contacted. He'll have the right to legal representation. And if he fights it? Then we go to court. I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. Good. Are you all right, Mrs. Hart? I thought about lying, saying yes, but I wasn't. I'm angry, I said instead, and tired, but I'm not afraid. That's something. That night, I did something I hadn't done in years. I went through my old journals. In the back of one, green cover, 1997, I found a note I wrote to myself the night Tom graduated high school. He's bright. Sharp. Maybe a little too sharp. I just hope he doesn't learn how to lie before he learns how to love. I read that line 5 times. Then I put the journal back in the drawer. The next morning, I got a knock at the door. I wasn't expecting anyone. I opened it and found Susan Davis on my porch. My neighbor, about my age. She wore her usual gardening gloves and that blue sweater with the patched elbow. Morning, Marilyn, she said, her eyes studying mine. Mind if I come in for a minute? I stepped aside. Of course. She came in like someone who knew her way around grief. I saw your boy the other day, she said, settling at my kitchen table. At the pharmacy. He looked, well, angry. I didn't say anything. Word gets around, she added, more softly. People are talking. I poured her tea. It was automatic by now. You think I'm making a mistake? I asked. She looked up sharply. No, I think it's about damn time. That startled a laugh out of me. A short one, but real. She leaned forward. We give everything, don't we? Our time. our savings, our softness, and we tell ourselves it's worth it because it's family. But there's a line, and you're not wrong for drawing it. I looked at her. You think people will understand? I don't care if they understand, she said. I care that you do. And just like that, I didn't feel so alone. That afternoon, I called Mr. Langford again, told him I wanted to amend my will. I don't want Tom listed anymore, not for anything. He was quiet a moment. You're certain? I am. I'll prepare the documents. And one more thing, I said. Can we set up a trust for Haley? Of course, he said gently. I think that's a good idea. I stood at the window after I hung up. The clouds had cleared, the sun was out, there would be storms ahead, but I'd made it through worse. The summons came in a plain white envelope, but its weight was enormous. I found it in my mailbox on Thursday morning, tucked between a grocery flyer and a coupon booklet. At first, I thought it was another statement, another reminder of what he'd done. But the return address was the Mecklenburg County Clerk's office. Inside, official notice. A case had been opened. My name at the top, listed under complainant. Tom's full name beneath, under defendant. There it was, in ink. I held the paper in my lap like I used to hold Tom's baby clothes, gently, with reverence and a little disbelief. What had once been tiny and innocent was now something else entirely. A day later, my phone rang. Unknown number. I didn't hesitate. Mrs. Hart? A man's voice, steady, clipped. This is Kevin Ross. I've been appointed to represent your son, Thomas Hart. My breath caught. I'm reaching out as a professional courtesy, he continued, to let you know we're reviewing the claims. My client maintains that this was a misunderstanding and that there was never malicious intent. I stared at the floor, the same floor I once taught Tom to mop when he was 12. He hated it. Said it was a job for poor people. Mr. Ross, I said evenly, I appreciate your call, but intent doesn't erase the facts. Understood, he replied smoothly. But if there's any chance you're open to a settlement outside of court, I'm not, I said. This isn't about the money. There was a pause. He wasn't expecting that. I see, he said finally. Then we'll proceed accordingly. After the call, I went to my closet, pulled out the box where I kept Tom's old drawings, crayon scrawls of rocket ships, his 5th grade My Mom is My Hero essay, the finger-painted birthday card that said, I love you bigger than trees. I sat on the edge of my bed and looked through them, one by one. Proof that once, love had been real. That once, he had seen me as more than a tool. By the time I finished, I had tears in my throat but none in my eyes. Grief is like that sometimes. It hardens, becomes bone. That evening, Susan brought over a casserole. I don't know if you like mushrooms, she said, but I figured now's not the time to be picky. She didn't ask questions, just sat with me while we ate in silence, clinking forks and breathing together. It was the kindest kind of company. Court's in 2 weeks, I told her. She nodded. You want me to come? I looked at her. That soft, wrinkled face, framed by stubborn gray curls. I hadn't asked for much in my life, not from anyone. I'd like that, I said quietly. After she left, I got a message from Haley. Dad told Mom everything. She's furious. Says you've humiliated the family. I told her it wasn't your fault. I told her you were brave. Brave. I didn't feel brave. I felt tired. But there's something comforting about hearing your truth repeated by someone who isn't trying to twist it. I replied, Thank you, sweetheart. That means more than you know. Then I turned off the lights, lay in bed, and listened to the sound of my heart. Steady, unbroken. The next morning, I opened a new bank account. One Tom didn't know about. I moved what little I had left into it. The rest was frozen anyway, part of the case. I canceled every automatic payment I'd ever set up for him. His internet bill, the second car insurance, the temporary childcare subscription that I'd still been funding for his youngest. No more. The woman at the bank was kind. She looked about Haley's age, with sharp eyes and a gentle voice. "Is there anything else I can help with today?" she asked as she handed me the new account folder. I hesitated. "Yes," I said. "I want to set up a secondary account, a savings account, for my granddaughter." She raised an eyebrow. "Same last name?" "Yes," I said, "but don't link it to mine. I'll fund it quietly, monthly. She doesn't know yet." The woman smiled. "I think that's a beautiful idea." That evening, I made a pot of soup. Nothing fancy, just potatoes, carrots, celery, the kind of soup that reminds you you're still alive. I ate alone at the table. No phone beside me. No television. Just me, and the sound of the spoon tapping against ceramic. Somewhere in the city, Tom was probably raging, or panicking, maybe even crying. But none of that was mine to carry anymore. That night, as I turned down the bed, I noticed something I hadn't in a while. The mirror above my dresser. It didn't make me flinch. I looked at myself. Really looked. The lines were deeper, the hair thinner, but the eyes, they were clear, steady. And for the first time in a long while, I said out loud, "I'm not ashamed of who I am." Not a whisper, not a plea, just the truth, spoken plainly. I hadn't seen Tom in person since the day at his kitchen island. Since the espresso and the contempt. Since the sentence that cracked something open in me. "You were never much to begin with." But now, sitting in the hallway outside the mediator's office, I could hear his voice through the thin wall. He was early. Of course he was. He always liked controlling the room. I sat quietly, my purse on my lap, my palms folded over the clasp. There was a small stain on the carpet where someone had spilled coffee, probably days ago, maybe weeks. Nobody had bothered to clean it properly, just like some people never bother cleaning up after the messes they make. They expect someone else to do it. "Mrs. Hart?" The clerk peeked out from the side door, clipboard in hand. "You can come in now." The room was long, with too bright lighting and a fake plant drooping in the corner. Tom was sitting at the far end of the table, beside his attorney. He looked up when I walked in. If he was surprised to see me standing straight, dressed simply but with care, holding his gaze, he didn't show it. But I saw the flicker, just a shadow of uncertainty in his eyes. "Hi, Mom," he said, like this was a school meeting or a PTA conference. Like we weren't here because he'd committed a felony against me. I nodded once. "Tom." We didn't hug. We didn't shake hands. The mediator, a tired-looking man with glasses that slipped too low on his nose, greeted us both and sat down. "I appreciate you both agreeing to meet," he began, flipping through the papers in front of him. "This is not a negotiation session, but an opportunity to clarify intent, discuss the financial impact, and, if possible, determine whether either party wishes to resolve this outside of court." Tom jumped on it immediately. "Of course I do," he said. "I never meant for any of this to get to this point. I just—" He paused and put on the look I'd seen him use at client dinners. Slightly wounded, vaguely noble. "I got in over my head. I panicked. I thought I could handle it before it snowballed." He looked at me. "You know I wouldn't hurt you on purpose." The mediator turned to me. Mrs. Hart, would you like to respond? I leaned forward slightly. Intent is not what we're here to discuss. We're here because my son committed identity theft. He opened multiple lines of credit in my name. He forged my signature. He used my personal information without my knowledge or consent. And he did it for more than a year without telling me. Not even when the bank started calling. Not even when I asked him, directly. Tom exhaled like I'd slapped him. Mom, I'm speaking, I said, without raising my voice. And I'm not angry anymore. I want you to know that. I'm not doing this out of spite. But I am doing it out of necessity. Because if I don't protect myself now, I won't have anything left. And neither will Haley. And you need to learn, finally, that you don't get to take without consequences. He opened his mouth, but nothing came out. The mediator cleared his throat. Mr. Hart, do you accept the claim of unauthorized debt? Tom looked at his lawyer, who nodded almost imperceptibly. I accept that I used the information, Tom said. But I still think it's a family matter. I mean, she's my mother. It's not like I stole from a stranger. Exactly, I said quietly. You stole from someone who trusted you. Silence fell. The mediator scribbled a few notes. All right. Then it seems we'll proceed to the next step. After the meeting, Tom caught up with me outside the building. Mom, please, don't do this. I turned to him. He looked tired, not defeated, just inconvenienced, like a man whose plans had hit a speed bump. You said I was worthless, I said, looking him straight in the eye. He flinched. I didn't mean it. I was upset. No, you were honest. That's what scares me. He reached for my arm. I pulled away. Please, he said again. Just drop the charges. I'll pay it back. You had 18 months to pay it back, I said. You didn't even try. I didn't want to worry you. I laughed then. A short, dry thing. Worry me? I said. Tom, you emptied my savings. You tanked my credit. You left me with nothing but debt and shame. And still, I got up. I called the police. I got a lawyer. I cleaned the mess you made. So don't stand there and pretend this is love. Love doesn't hide lies in loan papers. His face hardened. You think you're going to win? No, I said. I already did. I turned and walked away. That night, I slept better than I had in years. A few days after the mediation, I got a call from the detective. His voice was measured, but something in his tone told me he was trying to prepare me. Mrs. Hart, I wanted to inform you, formally, that the district attorney has decided to proceed with criminal charges. The investigation has concluded. We've collected the evidence we need. Your son will be notified within the next 72 hours. I nodded, holding the phone tight. What happens next? They'll serve him with a notice to appear. He'll be formally charged. Identity theft, fraud, falsifying financial documents. The DA may offer a plea deal, depending on how he responds. If not, we'll prepare for trial. I thanked him. After I hung up, I sat still for a while. Not triumphant, not broken, just still. And then I did what I hadn't done in weeks. I turned the radio on. Some station with soft jazz and a voice that said the weather would be warm through Sunday. Outside, my rose bush had started to bloom again, stubborn as ever. Around noon, the doorbell rang. I opened it and found Linda, Tom's wife, standing on my porch. For a moment, we just looked at each other. She had a large toad on one shoulder, her blonde hair pulled back too tightly, like always. Her expression was hard to read. Not apologetic, not angry, just pressed. Can I come in? She asked. I didn't move. Depends on what you came for. She blinked. I just want to talk." I let her in, but I didn't offer tea. She sat at the edge of the couch like she didn't want to crease it. "I didn't know," she said after a pause. "About the accounts, about what he was doing with your name." I didn't answer. "I swear," she added, "I thought the money was his. He always made it sound like business was booming. And you never wondered why we hadn't spoken in over a year? Why I suddenly stopped coming around?" Her eyes dropped. "I thought you were just being distant." I gave a dry smile. "I was bankrupt, in case you didn't hear." She shifted uncomfortably. "Look, I'm not here to fight. I'm here because the police called. Tom's been charged. He told me everything, or at least what he wanted to tell." "Did he tell you he forged my signature 17 times? She didn't answer. I stood, walked to the small bookshelf by the window and pulled out a file folder. I handed it to her. She opened it, flipped through it slowly, copies of the credit applications, the balances, the referral lines, his handwriting in the margins. My name typed neatly above fake signatures. When she reached the bottom, she looked up at me. There was no more room for disbelief in her eyes, only shame. "Jesus," she whispered. "Don't invoke him," I said. "He's not in those papers." She closed the folder but didn't hand it back. "I don't know what you want me to say." "You don't need to say anything." She looked around the room like she'd never really seen it before. The old photographs, the framed birth certificate of Haley that still hung in the hallway, the chair Tom used to sit in during Sunday dinners. "We're ruined," she said quietly. "Financially, legally, and maybe, I don't know, emotionally." I said nothing. She looked at me again. "Are you really going to go through with it? Pressing charges? Taking it all the way?" "I already have," I said. "The rest isn't up to me anymore." She stood. "You know this will tear the family apart." I nodded. "It already did." "I'm just done pretending it didn't." She opened her mouth, maybe to argue, maybe to plead, but then thought better of it. She turned, walked to the door, and paused. "Haley loves you. Whatever happens, I won't stop her from seeing you." That was the closest thing to grace I'd heard in months. "Thank you," I said, and meant it. When she left, I sat back down and let the quiet return. Later that night, my phone buzzed. A message from Haley. "They told me what happened. I'm still with you. Just wanted you to know." That was all it said. But it was enough. Tom was arrested the following Tuesday. They didn't drag him out in handcuffs or splash it across the evening news. It was quiet, procedural. He was served a formal notice to appear, fingerprinted, and released on bail the same day. But word spreads in a town like ours. I got a call from Janet, an old co-worker from the print shop. "Marilyn, honey, I don't mean to pry, but I heard something about Tom. Is everything okay?" I gave the same answer to everyone who asked. "It's a family matter, but I'm handling it." They always paused after that, not sure what to say. They were used to the Marilyn who smiled through everything, the woman who stayed quiet even when her eyes screamed. But not anymore. By Wednesday, the whispers had spread to my neighborhood. The mail carrier didn't make eye contact. Mrs. Lenz, from 2 houses down, waved from her porch, but it was hesitant, polite, like she didn't know which side to stand on. It was strange watching people retreat. Not because I'd done something wrong, but because I had stopped letting things slide. That night, I took a long walk. The leaves were starting to fall, crisp beneath my shoes. I passed the church where I used to bring Tom on Sundays, back when he was small and still believed in something bigger than himself. When I got home, there was a letter taped to my front door. No envelope. Just a single sheet of paper, folded once. It was Tom's handwriting. Mom, I don't even know where to start. You've always seen the best in me, even when I didn't deserve it. I know I've ruined everything. I know you probably hate me. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. I didn't mean for it to go this far. I was drowning, and I used you like a life raft. I know that's no excuse. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I hope, one day, you'll remember I'm still your son. Tom, I read it once. Then again, my eyes didn't well up. My heart didn't twist. Because I'd hoped for this letter years ago. Before the loans, before the forged documents, before the shame. And now, it was too late for paper to patch what had been broken in silence. I folded the letter and put it in the drawer under old receipts and grocery lists. Not because it meant nothing, but because it meant something once. Just not anymore. 2 days later, I received a call from the DA's office. A young woman named Carmen was handling the case. We've been informed that Mr. Hart's attorney plans to propose a plea deal, she said. He's willing to admit guilt on the financial fraud and identity theft in exchange for a reduced sentence, probation, financial restitution, no jail time. I closed my eyes. Would that be fair? She hesitated. He's a first-time offender, technically, and the judge is likely to be lenient, especially with the restitution agreement in place, but it's your right to object. I'm not here for punishment, I said. I'm here for accountability. If he admits what he did and pays back what he took, I can live with that. Carmen exhaled softly. That's generous, Mrs. Hart. Most people want blood. I smiled faintly. I'm too old to collect blood. I'm just trying to reclaim what's mine. The agreement was drafted 2 days later. Tom would plead guilty to 2 counts of identity theft and 1 count of financial fraud. He would be sentenced to 3 years probation, ordered to pay back the remaining $61,000 over time, and barred from opening credit in anyone else's name for 10 years. The judge would review it next month. I didn't feel victory. I felt still, like the dust had finally stopped swirling. That weekend, I had Haley over for dinner, just the 2 of us. She brought a pie. I made stew. We didn't talk about the case much. She asked if I was okay. I said I was, and then she said something I didn't expect. Grandma, do you ever think about moving? Somewhere quieter? I blinked. Why would I move? She shrugged. You've done so much for everyone else. Maybe it's time you do something just for you. I didn't answer right away, but her words sat with me long after she left. All night, I kept thinking, what if? I found the listing late at night, after Haley had gone home. I wasn't looking seriously, just browsing. But there it was, a small cottage, white brick with green shutters, tucked near Lake Norman, 1 bedroom, a wraparound porch, a view of the water, modest, quiet, mine if I wanted it. The next morning, I called the realtor, just to ask, just to see. 2 days later, I drove out to see it. It took less than an hour to know, not just that I liked it, but that I belonged there. The air smelled different, cleaner, calmer. There was a little bench under a tree out front that reminded me of one Henry and I used to sit on in our first home, long before Tom was born, when everything was still ahead of us. The house wasn't perfect. The paint peeled a bit near the eaves. The kitchen was outdated. The roof would need work in a year or 2, but it didn't matter. I didn't want perfection. I wanted peace. I called Mr. Langford the next day. I want to make an offer, I said. Cash. He paused. Marilyn, are you sure? I'm more sure about this than I've been about anything in years. I'll handle the paperwork, he said gently. Congratulations. I didn't tell anyone at first. Not Haley. Not Susan. Not the neighbors who now cross the street rather than wave. It was mine. A quiet triumph. A step toward something that didn't include anyone else's permission. The following week, I started packing. I didn't need much. I donated half the clothes in my closet, gave away every casserole dish I hadn't used in 10 years, threw out boxes of Tom's things I'd kept just in case, school trophies, old ties, a watch he left here after some holiday dinner years ago. I kept only what felt real, what felt mine. One afternoon, Susan dropped by and caught me mid-box. "You're leaving?" she asked, blinking at the stacks. "I am," I said. She stood still, then gave a slow, wide smile. "Good for you." "I thought I'd be scared," I admitted, "but I'm not." She nodded. "That's how you know it's time." 2 days before closing, I called Haley. "I have something to tell you," I said. We met at the diner, same booth as always. She ordered sweet tea. I had black coffee. When I told her, her eyes widened, then filled. "You're moving?" "I am." She reached across the table and took my hand. "I'm proud of you," she whispered. "I really am." I squeezed her fingers. "And you'll visit," I said. "There's a spare bed. It folds out, but I promise it's not lumpy. I'll come every weekend." We laughed. We didn't say anything more about Tom. We didn't need to. That night, back at the house, I took one last walk through the rooms. The living room, where Tom took his first steps. The kitchen, where I'd stood with the phone in my hand, listening to the bank list out his lies. The hallway, where I'd taped his report cards. The closet, where I kept his letters from summer camp, before the coldness started. Every corner held something, some echo, but not enough to hold me anymore. I stood by the bedroom window and watched the streetlights flicker on. Then I whispered, "Thank you," into the dark. Not to the house, not even to the past. To myself. The courtroom was smaller than I expected, not like the ones in movies. No mahogany grandeur, no sweeping staircases or echoing gavels. Just beige walls, worn carpet, a scattering of wooden benches, and a judge who looked like she'd rather be anywhere else. But it was enough. Enough to mark a line in the sand. Susan sat beside me, quiet and steady, her knitting needles stashed in her purse. Haley sat behind us. She'd taken the morning off school and wore a blazer too big for her, borrowed from a friend. I could tell by the way her shoulder seams drooped. Tom walked in just before it began. He looked different, older, maybe, or just smaller. The sharpness he usually wore like armor had dulled. His lawyer stayed close to him, whispering something I couldn't hear. He didn't look at me. The judge ran through the process. Charges, agreement, rights waived. Tom responded with nods and quiet, "Yes, ma'ams." No performance. No protest. When she asked if he understood the nature of his plea, he said, "I do." And just like that, it was over. 3 years probation. Monthly payments to me, totaling the stolen amount. Regular financial reviews. A 10-year bar on opening credit accounts in anyone else's name. No jail, no trial, just consequence. The judge looked at me before closing the file. "Mrs. Hart, do you wish to make a statement?" I hadn't planned on speaking, but my feet moved before I could stop them. I stood, slowly, and faced the court. "My name is Marilyn Hart," I began. "I'm a retired bookkeeper. I raised my son alone after my husband died when Tom was 7 years old. I did what mothers do. I gave. I believed. I forgave. My voice didn't shake. I'm not here because I want to punish my son. I'm here because I finally decided to protect myself. What he did to me, what he took, wasn't just money. It was trust. It was the dignity of being treated like a person, not a resource. I spent my life being careful, being responsible, and in return, he used my name like a doormat. Tom's head stayed down. I'm not angry anymore, I said. But I'm done being silent. The judge gave a small nod. Thank you, Mrs. Hart. I sat. My hands were still. My breath was steady. Tom was ushered out shortly after. No one stopped him. No handcuffs. Just a closed door and the sound of footsteps fading down the hallway. Susan touched my elbow gently. You okay? I nodded. I am. Outside, the day was warm, the sky clear. A breeze moved through the trees like it had somewhere to go. Haley walked me to the car. He looked ashamed, she said softly. Good, I replied. Shame's a start. Do you think he'll change? I paused, then shrugged. That's not mine to answer anymore. She hugged me tight. I'm really proud of you, Grandma. I kissed the top of her head. You've always been my reason to keep going. That night, I didn't go home. I drove straight to the lake. My lake. The cottage was waiting, keys in the mailbox, like the realtor promised. I stepped inside and exhaled, deep and slow. The walls were bare, the floors creaked. But it felt like stepping into my own skin. I slept with the windows open. The breeze smelled like pine and distance. I woke to birds instead of garbage trucks, made coffee on a stove that hissed like an old friend. And when I looked in the mirror that morning, I saw something I hadn't in years. A woman who had finally chosen herself. It's strange how quiet the world becomes when no one expects anything from you anymore. No favors, no emergency checks, no guilt-tripped dinners with tight smiles and tighter silences. The cottage had no Wi-Fi yet. The cell reception came and went. I could go whole days without a voice besides my own. And yet, I wasn't lonely. Not in the way I'd feared. In the first week, I painted the porch railing, white, like it had been before weather wore it down. I pulled weeds from the front path, planted a row of mums in honor of the season, cooked myself meals from scratch. Not because I had to feed someone, but because I wanted the smell of roasted garlic and thyme to fill the rooms. Sometimes, I sat by the lake in the evenings with a blanket and just watched. That's something they don't tell you about starting over at 74. It's not dramatic. It's not fireworks or epiphanies. It's quiet, practical, gentle if you let it be. I still got letters from the court, updates on the restitution payments. So far, 2 had arrived, small amounts but timely. I didn't count on them. I didn't need to. The account Mr. Langford helped me open was secure. The debt had been reversed or forgiven by most institutions. My credit would recover, eventually, and for the first time in decades, I had no reason to lie awake worrying about someone else's problems. Susan called every Sunday. We didn't talk long, just enough to laugh a little, to say, I'm still here. Haley sent photos, her fall art project, the campus lawn covered in leaves, the silly cat from the dorm across the hall. She always added a note at the bottom, love you more than coffee. I printed each one and taped them on the fridge. One morning, I went to the local library and applied for a part-time volunteer slot, helping with returns, reshelving books. The woman at the desk asked me if I had any references. I laughed. Just myself, I said. But she's very reliable. That Saturday, I hosted Haley for the first time in the cottage. She arrived with a weekend bag and a box of muffins. When she stepped through the door, her eyes lit up like I'd handed her a secret. Grandma, she said, spinning slowly in the middle of the room. This is so you. You mean small? I teased. I mean peaceful, she said. Like a deep breath. We spent the evening making chili and playing cards. No TV, no distractions. Just two women, bound by something more durable than DNA. She asked me if I'd heard from Tom. I shook my head. Do you think he will? She asked. I don't know, I said, but I'm not waiting anymore. She looked at me a long moment. You seem different. I am. I didn't mean stronger, or wiser, or colder. I meant free. That night, we sat on the porch with hot tea, wrapped in old quilts. The lake shimmered under the moon. A frog croaked somewhere nearby, a single note in a long silence. I've been thinking, Haley said softly, about what it means to take care of someone. What about it? I used to think it meant doing whatever they needed, being there no matter what, forgiving everything. I nodded. That's what I thought too. But now I think, she hesitated, maybe taking care of someone means refusing to help them hurt you. I reached over and took her hand. That's the most grown thing I've ever heard you say, I whispered. She smiled. I'm learning from the best. Autumn deepened. The trees around the lake turned to fire, gold, rust, wine red. And every morning the shore looked different, like the earth was quietly letting go of something. I understood that feeling. Some days I watched the leaves fall like confessions. Honest, gentle, necessary. I settled into a rhythm. Wake early, walk to the mailbox, brew coffee, read a chapter of something old and comforting, Agatha Christie sometimes, or one of the brittle paperbacks I brought from home, spine-worn and familiar. Every Tuesday, I worked the morning shift at the library. The staff called me Miss Marilyn, even though I told them just Marilyn was fine. There was something sweet about the formality, though. Like they saw me, not as someone broken or past her prime, but as someone who had arrived. Every Thursday, I called Mr. Langford to check the payment reports. Tom was still sending money. Not a lot, but enough to show he'd kept the terms of the agreement, for now. I didn't hold my breath. I'd learned better than to pin peace on someone else's consistency. But I was at peace. Not in a loud, triumphant way, in a soft, clear way. Like my bones had finally stopped bracing for disappointment. Until the letter came. Not from the court, not from the bank. From Tom. It arrived in a plain envelope, no return address. The handwriting on the front was familiar. Tight, angular, careful. Like he'd rewritten it once or twice before committing ink to paper. I carried it inside like a stone. Sat down. Took a breath. Opened it. Mom, I know I'm the last person you want to hear from. I wouldn't blame you if you tore this up. But I wanted to try anyway. Not because I expect forgiveness. Just because I need you to know I see it now. All of it. What I did was theft. Not just of money, but of trust. Of years. Of everything you gave me, over and over, without asking for anything back. I treated your love like a safety net I'd never have to fall through. And I used you up without even noticing. When the charges came, I was angry. I told myself you were cruel, that you'd turned on me. But now I see it was the first time you ever truly protected yourself from me. I've started going to meetings, financial recovery, therapy. I don't know who I am without all the noise and need, but I'm trying to find out. You don't owe me anything. Not a response. Not grace. But I wanted you to have the truth. Finally, I'm sorry, Mom. For all of it. Love, Tom. I folded the letter and placed it gently on the table. Then I sat back and stared out the window for a long time. Not crying, not angry, not relieved, just quiet. Because I knew something now, too. That letter, it wasn't for me. It was for him. A step in his recovery, his conscience, his version of closure. And that was fine. But I didn't owe him anything either. I didn't write back. Not because I was bitter. Not because I hadn't heard him, but because some silences are sacred. And this one, I had earned. The seasons shifted again, quietly. By mid-November, the lake slowed into stillness. The mornings came in frost. Mornings like lace on the window glass, the kind that make you sip coffee slower, wrap the shawl tighter. I liked the cold. It kept things honest. No pretending. Just breath and bone and whatever warmth you made yourself. I found new ways to fill the days. I started baking again. Old recipes, ones I thought I'd forgotten. Apple loaf, walnut shortbread, even that lemon pie Henry used to love. I mailed one to Haley in a tin box, lined with parchment. She sent back a photo, half-eaten slice, captioned, "You should open a bakery." I laughed out loud, alone, but not lonely. Susan visited once, just before Thanksgiving. She brought a thermos of cider and 2 mismatched mugs. "I like it here," she said, looking out at the lake. "Feels like a page you get to write yourself." "That's the idea," I said. We sat on the porch, wrapped in blankets, talking about nothing in particular. Her back pain, the librarian's new perm, the noise raccoons made under the porch last week. But that's what friendship is at our age. Not fireworks. Just someone to pass the silence with. That night, after she left, I stood by the water. It was moonless, dark enough to see stars. I used to look at stars when I was younger and think of possibility. Now I looked at them and thought of permanence, of how some things just are. Burning, distant, whole. Tom hadn't written again, and I hadn't expected him to. But the ache of it, that final line drawn in blood and paper, didn't sting like it used to. It felt quiet, worn in, like a scar you run your fingers across, not to reopen, but to remember what healing costs. Thanksgiving came and went. Haley spent it with her mother's family, but she called from the porch, phone crackling a bit. Guess what I told everyone during dessert? What? That my grandma owns a house by the lake and bakes better pies than anyone on campus. Flattery will get you another one. She laughed. Good, because I told them you'd send a box. I did. The Tuesday after, I got a card in the mail. It was from an unknown address, somewhere in Asheville. Inside was a short message. "Mrs. Hart, I worked on your case as a clerk for the DA. I don't usually write to victims, but I wanted to thank you. You reminded all of us that protecting yourself, even from family, is not just brave, it's necessary. I hope your lake house is everything you needed. Anna R." I read it 3 times. Then I placed it next to Haley's photo on the shelf. Because even if no one saw the struggle but me, there were echoes. Proof that dignity leaves a mark. That evening, I opened the drawer where I'd stored Tom's apology. I read it once more, slowly, not to feel anything, just to be sure. Then I folded it again, walked to the fireplace, and fed it to the flame. It caught quickly, went quiet. I didn't cry. I didn't sigh. I just stood there until it was gone. I didn't expect December to feel so warm. Not the weather. No, the mornings were sharp with frost, and the lake sometimes glazed with a skim of ice by dawn. But inside me, something had thawed. I felt it in the way I opened the curtains each morning without dread, in the ease of my own footsteps on the hardwood, in how my hands no longer trembled when I checked the mail. I wasn't waiting for anything anymore. Not the next call, not the next apology, not even justice. What needed to happen had happened. I was simply living. Haley came the weekend before Christmas. She brought fairy lights and a bundle of cinnamon sticks tied with twine, said the cottage needed holiday magic. We spent the day unpacking an old box of ornaments I hadn't touched in years. Some were chipped, some had stories. A ceramic bell from Tom's first-grade Christmas play, a pinecone angel with 1989 scribbled in gold ink. Haley picked it up and smiled. "I remember this one," she said. "You used to let me ring it before dinner. You had no idea how loud it was." We laughed. She hung it in the window anyway. Later, over dinner, she asked if I missed him. Tom. It wasn't a trap. Just a granddaughter asking her grandmother the truth. I thought about it. "I miss the version of him that used to love without calculation," I said. "I miss the boy who made me Mother's Day cards out of construction paper and cried when his goldfish died. But I don't miss who he became." She nodded, solemn. "I don't either." It was the first time either of us had said it out loud. There's something sacred in saying the hard things, especially when you're not trying to hurt anyone, just trying to name the shape of the wound. That night, we watched the fire burn low. She dozed off with her head on my shoulder, and I stayed still, not because I was afraid to wake her, but because the weight of her, trusting, steady, felt like the closest thing to home I'd known in years. On Christmas morning, she handed me a small box, badly wrapped. "Sorry for the tape job," she said. "I ran out halfway through." Inside was a framed photo. Haley, younger, sitting beside me on the porch of the old house. I had my hand on her back. She was laughing, missing a front tooth. But it wasn't the picture that undid me. It was the note tucked behind the frame. "To the woman who taught me strength doesn't always shout. To the woman who didn't just survive but stood up. This year, I learned what love with boundaries looks like. And it looks a lot like you." My eyes filled. She didn't say anything, just leaned against me again. We didn't talk about Tom the rest of the day. Not because we were ignoring him, but because the absence didn't ache anymore. Later that week, Susan called. "Saw Tom at the market," she said. "He looked thinner, worn out." I didn't ask what he said. I didn't ask how he looked. I didn't need to. "He asked how you were," she added after a pause. "I said you were doing well." "Thank you," I said. She hesitated. "Do you ever think you'll speak to him again?" "I don't know," I said. "But I'm not planning on it." Fair. There was no judgment in her voice, just truth passing between women who knew too well how many things are left unsaid in this world. That night, I sat by the lake in my coat and scarf, tea steaming between my palms. I watched the sky shift from slate to velvet, and I thought, he hasn't called, and I'm not waiting. That's not punishment. That's peace. The new year arrived without ceremony. No fireworks, no countdown. Just the soft ticking of the clock in my kitchen, a quiet reminder that time moves forward, with or without our permission. I stood outside just after midnight, wrapped in Henry's old coat, breathing in the clean, cold air. The lake was black and still. The trees slept without asking for anything. And in that stillness, I felt something shift. Not an epiphany, not a revelation, a settling. I was done waiting. Done hoping for apologies that wouldn't come the way I wanted. Done shaping myself around someone else's shame. Done carrying silence like it was love. Tom hadn't reached out again. The restitution payments still arrived, small and punctual, but no letters, no calls. I hadn't blocked his number. I didn't need to. I'd blocked the part of me that kept hoping he'd wake up different. That's the kind of grief no one warns you about. Grieving someone who's still alive. Learning to love them from far away. Through glass. Through the choices they made. I still loved him, but I loved myself more now. And that changed everything. That winter, I wrote a letter. Not to send. Just to write. Dear Marilyn, you did it. Not loudly, not perfectly, but fully. You didn't let the worst of someone else become the end of you. You stood up when it would have been easier to disappear. You told the truth, even when it cracked your voice. And you built a life from the wreckage, with your own hands, in your own time. You are not cold. You are clear. You are not cruel. You are whole. You are not alone. You are free. Love me. I folded it, tucked it into the back of a drawer, and smiled. Some stories don't end with reunions. Some don't end with rage. Some end like this. A quiet house. A warm cup. A name restored. A future rebuilt. Brick by stubborn brick. Sometimes the bravest thing a woman can do is choose herself. Without apology. Without spectacle. Without waiting for anyone to clap. If this story met you where you needed it, share it. If it reminded you of your own silence, speak. And if it made you feel less alone, even for a moment, follow for more stories like this one. There's more than one way to come home.